Far away, in a vast and majestic kingdom, there lived a mighty king. He had only one daughter, Princess Monur. She was breathtakingly beautiful but incredibly headstrong and defiant. Many princes from across the lands offered to marry her, but the stubborn princess would simply shake her head and firmly refuse. One day, the frustrated king finally asked,
"Then who will you marry?"
To which Princess Monur replied,
"The man who brings me a sweet, fragrant, and freshly picked pear early in the morning on Eid day."
This strange condition quickly spread like wildfire throughout the kingdom. People began whispering, "It means she'll never marry anyone." In the same kingdom, there lived a kind-hearted old man with 3 sons. The eldest was a cobbler, the second was a tailor, and the youngest washed dishes in a royal kitchen. As fate would have it, on the night before Eid, the old man happened to be walking through a forest. There, to his amazement, he spotted 3 perfectly ripe, fragrant, and juicy pears hanging from a branch. He plucked them carefully and hurried home. The next morning, he called his eldest son, gave him 1 pear and said, "Wear your Eid clothes and take this pear to the princess right away." The son obeyed. He dressed up, placed the pear in a beautifully decorated basket, and set off toward the palace. Not far into the forest, he encountered a strange, ragged old man who pointed at the basket and asked, "What's in there?" "None of your business," the young man snapped and walked away. Once he reached the palace and presented the basket to the princess, she opened it, pushed aside the leaves, and gasped in disgust. The pear had completely rotted. It looked and smelled awful. The king, furious at this insult, ordered his guards to whip the foolish young man. Bruised and regretful, he returned home and told his father everything. The old man then gave the second pear to his middle son and said, "Put on your Eid clothes and deliver this to the princess." The second son set out, basket in hand. Once again, the same strange old man appeared in the forest and pointed at the basket, asking, "What's in there?" "Whatever it is, it's none of your concern," snapped the boy and stormed off. When he reached the palace and handed the pear to the princess, she uncovered it, only to find it had rotted too. The king, enraged, ordered the same punishment. The second son, disappointed like his brother, returned home in shame. Finally, the old man gave the last pear to his youngest son and said, "Wear your Eid clothes and take this to the princess right away." On his way, the youngest son also met the same peculiar old man. The man asked, "What's in your basket?" The boy smiled and replied politely, "A sweet, ripe, and freshly picked pear. I'm taking it to the princess, hoping she'll agree to marry me when she sees it." The old man's eyes lit up. "You're kind, honest, and respectful," he said. "Take this small whistle. When you blow it, everything around you will follow your command." The boy thanked the old man, slipped the magical whistle into his pocket, and walked happily toward the royal palace. When Princess Monur opened the basket and pushed aside the leaves, she was taken aback to see a fresh, sweet-smelling pear sitting perfectly inside. Panic filled her heart, because accepting this pear meant she would have to marry this boy. After a pause, she said,
"I will marry you, but only if you complete one more condition. In our royal garden, there are exactly 100 rabbits. You must take them all with you, feed them, and take care of them for 1 full week. If you succeed, then I—"
The boy humbly bowed and agreed to her terms. He led the 100 rabbits out of the royal garden and into a nearby field. Then, he took the magical whistle from his pocket and blew it. The moment the sound rang out, all 100 rabbits followed him in perfect order. Gathering them was no trouble at all. On the 3rd day, the princess herself arrived, disguised as a servant, riding a small donkey. She said to the boy, "Your rabbits are lovely. Will you sell me just one of them?" "No," the boy replied firmly. "They're not for sale. But, if you kiss your donkey's snout, I'll give you 1 rabbit for free." The princess wrinkled her nose in disgust at the idea. But marrying a mere dishwashing boy felt even worse. So, reluctantly, she kissed the donkey's snout. The boy handed her a rabbit, and she tucked it under her arm and rode off. But as soon as she was far enough, the boy pulled out the whistle and blew it. The rabbit instantly leapt from her arms and returned to the others, as if nothing had happened. The next day, the queen herself came disguised as a maid. But she too failed to trick the boy or steal a rabbit. On the third day, the king dressed up like a wandering sage and came to try his luck. Even he couldn't succeed, for the magic whistle outsmarted every trick. At the end of the week, the boy returned to the palace with all 100 rabbits still accounted for, not a single one missing. But the king, still unwilling to marry off his daughter to a mere kitchen helper, said, "Before the wedding, you must first bring me 3 sacks filled entirely with truth. Only then can the marriage take place." The boy, confused and worried, walked out of the palace. He hadn't gone far when the strange old man from the forest appeared before him once again. With a calm voice, he reassured the boy and said, "Here, take these 3 sacks filled to the brim with truth. Go straight to the king and tell him the story of the 3 customers who tried to buy a rabbit from you. Remember, they were not just anyone, they were the princess, the queen, and the king himself. After telling each story, blow your whistle. The moment they hear it, they will be drawn into the sacks, one by one." The boy took the 3 sacks and returned to the palace. He stood before the king and began by telling the story of the princess, who had disguised herself as a maid and even kissed a donkey's snout to get a rabbit. As soon as he finished the story, he blew the magical whistle, and whoosh, the princess flew straight into the first sack. The sack sealed itself shut. Then he told the story of the queen, who had also come disguised as a servant to trick him. Again, at the end of the story, he blew the whistle, and just like the princess, the queen vanished into the second sack. "Stop! That's enough!" the king cried out in alarm. But the boy paid no attention. He continued with the tale of the old stableman who came for a rabbit, and how he too had failed. When the story ended, the boy blew the whistle a third time, and with a loud whoosh, the king was sucked into the final sack. Inside the sack, the king's voice echoed, "You have spoken nothing but the truth. Therefore, you have earned the right to marry my daughter." Hearing this, the boy opened all 3 sacks and released the princess, queen, and king. Immediately, the palace echoed with the sound of drums and trumpets. The royal wedding preparations began, with great joy and celebration. Moral of the story: true humility, honesty, and kindness can overcome even the toughest challenges. Sometimes, the simplest hearts carry the greatest wisdom and courage.